Thank you, Ethna. While the past cannot be changed, the future is an uncertain and uncharted territory, full of possibilities. This should excite us. Our actions have the power to shape those possibilities and create a better tomorrow. We are gathered here today with Trudi Sully, Tony Abou Jawad, and Jens Fussing to discuss the current practices in the construction sector. How can digital technologies enhance the ecosystem relationships and the needed skills and knowledge to enable new methods of functioning and thinking in construction industry? Before we delve into our discussion, let us meet our panelists.
Hello, I'm Trudi Sully and I'm an Impact Director for the Construction Innovation Hub. This is a 4-year government-funded programme in the UK, and our mission is to create better outcomes for current and future generations by driving the adoption of manufacturing and digital approaches that improve the delivery, resilience and performance of infrastructure. And to do this, we're working both with industry, with technology and innovation centres, and with the government itself. Thank you.
My name is Tony Abou Jawad and I'm the Industry Manager at Autodesk, covering architectural, engineering and construction, as well as manufacturing sectors. I lead a team of professionals whose goal is to make their clients with digital technology more efficient, profitable and successful. How do we do that? The Autodesk team deliver customers intuitive, powerful and accessible technology that provides automation and insight for their design and make process, enabling them to achieve better outcomes for better products and for their businesses and for the world.
Hi, my name is Jens Fussing. I'm Technical Director of BG&E. I live and work in Dubai, but we work all over the world. We're a structural engineering company. By background, I'm Scandinavian, so of course sustainability, efficiency is a big part of my life and my motto. So we work all over the world, especially with prefabrication, and that lends itself up to the BIM technology a lot.
Thank you. And I will be the moderator of the day. My name is Hana Suwaidi. I'm coming from the Department of Economic Development that's running under the Dubai government. I'm currently a project manager in the Future Economy Department, where we run research and development projects in understanding what are the future trends that needs to be applied here in Dubai, and that will accelerate the economy. I am a circular economy enthusiastic. I am into sustainability and I'm into as well education. Trudi, what are some of the most noticeable innovation trends in the construction sector? And what was your biggest achievement as a result of the recent pandemic?
Okay, so for us, there's a very significant move in the sector to greater uptake of off-site and manufacturing approaches. And this has actually been very significant in this year, where we've been so challenged because of the COVID epidemic and the lockdowns that have ensued. So there's certainly been a lot of positive drive around this. And I think really in terms of the greatest achievement this year is the recognition and the really huge support that we're getting from government and industry to change the way that buildings are delivered and adopt more intelligent practices, manufacturing approaches and digital. And that even comes down to smaller technologies, so like wearable technology, where it's actually enabling sites to carry on working effectively while maintaining social distancing. So the advances and the innovations that are happening have actually become even more in demand this year, which is a great opportunity for the sector. And in this year, identifying opportunities is a wonderful thing.
Tony, do you have any follow-ups?
I do. From my perspective, if we think about designers or design firms, then collaboration has to be the biggest, the biggest noticeable digital change that has helped people during the pandemic stay at home, stay safe, but keep their businesses going. So we've noticed that design firms who have adopted collaborative BIM design in the cloud for their projects suffered the least during COVID, and we can tell by speaking to them and comparing them with their peers. These future thinking organizations engaged many years ago, and so unbeknownst to them, as the pandemic came along, they grabbed their computers, took them home, and then continued to work together to continue on their designs and projects from their homes. So I think that's a great achievement, and it's one of those moments where you believe in a technology, you adopt it, nobody really notices until you get hit by the disruption like this pandemic has done for everybody.
Ines, do you have any points to tell us as well?
Yes. I think if we look at the mega trends, I think the pandemic, healthcare system, and sustainability actually goes hand in hand. And I think it's the mega trends of the future and what we've seen. I think for innovation to happen, we need to be provoked. We need to be provoked for outside circumstances, and I think we have seen that. I'll come to an example. It has accelerated the whole digitalization, online life. Everybody is speaking with everybody still. Sustainability. Usually I used to drive 30,000 kilometers a year. Now it's only 5,000. I used to fly 7 to 10 overseas. Now this year it's only 1. It's a tremendous reduction in CO2 footprint. I live right next door to Burj Khalifa. I can see the building every day. I couldn't do that 3 years ago. It's an eye-opener. It's the whole, they say that in April that the CO2 footprint was reduced with 17% worldwide. So now people can start to believe in the Paris, agreement. Most important, achievements was very, very practical. We were working on 2 arenas down on SeaWorld in Abu Dhabi, produced in Dubai and designed out of 4 offices all over the world. We didn't lose one single day on site because when you do prefabrication, we have reduced the manpower with 60 people. So it was actually still possible to move people in and out. You can work at factory at the same time as you work on site. So because it was in technology, these arenas are actually double curve seating, super complicated drawings with integrated MEP openings. It was possible to deliver that on time because of BIM and because of prefabrication, which required less people on site. So that's a good story.
That's great. That's great. Indeed, the pandemic really showed how technology is really important, and it really kind of diffused and accelerated the use of technology, whether in our daily life or in our corporate life. And as if the earth has breathed during the lockdown period. And also Dubai government has introduced earlier this month the new Dubai building code, where they are also focusing on using sustainable and renewable materials in construction and retail industry. So that is a good. So there are some good results that came out of this pandemic. Our second question goes as well to Trudi. How are the current practices in the construction industry being reinvented, and in what way can organizations remain relevant in this area of disruption?
Okay, so I mentioned already about manufacturing and off-site and as Jens mentioned, prefabrication. These already are happening, but there's an opportunity to take it so much further. And the work that we're doing in the UK, a lot of it is about taking the lessons from other industries that have gone through transformation themselves and seeing what we can take and apply to construction in a way that helps increase productivity, increases efficiency, increases the quality, reduces delivery time, and so on and so forth. So taking lessons from automotive and from aerospace, not saying that construction is the same, but realizing that manufacturing processes and tools can be applied and translated for the construction application. So for organizations to stay relevant and stay engaged in this time of significant transformation, and this is happening around the whole world, you need to stay current with these trends, and we've already mentioned collaboration once. I think it'll come up a lot more. Learn from others. It's far better to invest through collaboration and actually maximize the opportunity for benefits for a greater spectrum of the industry to be able to remain viable and profitable than to try and do it all on your own. So I'll always encourage that collaborative approach. And do look to address the skills gap as well. So I think we'll come back to this as well, because it's so important. But you have to have a constant eye on what the future is, and address where you are now and how you can move towards it.
These are some good points that you're mentioning, Trudi. Hines, do you have any points you want to add on?
Great, thank you. Yes, I can think of a few practices that are being reinvented. So one that comes to mind is generative design, which is outcome-based artificial intelligence design. That's where an algorithm, you give the outcome you want, let's say number of rooms in a building and which way the building is going to face, and compare it to the cost of building that building and what materials and how efficient the building is going to be. You give all of that to an algorithm, and then the algorithm will generate for you thousands upon thousands of options, all rated for things like return on investment, cost, sustainability goals, that kind of thing. So this is becoming more prevalent. And it changes the practice of designing from one that is, limited in options and aesthetics versus sustainability to one where, so many options are put on the table that we have more of a chance of getting to the most optimal situation, taking in mind multiple things. So a great building with great sustainability results that doesn't cost too much, and that's not a bad thing to have. And thousands of options is also not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, there are some new circular models that has been introduced by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and these modular designs can be explored either in the architecture or in the construction industry. So speaking of design, Tony, what do you think, or what would you answer our next question that speaks about from design to project implementation? We have a mass amount of data being produced and developed, yet a majority of this data remains stagnant. How can we further enhance decision-making by making data accessible, reliable, and intuitive to deploy?
That's a very good question. So some of our clients are already benefiting from artificial project intelligence. They use dashboards to give them insight on how a project is going with graphical characters, and describing project trends that matter most to them. For example, you might look at a project dashboard and see risky subcontractors, risky project issues and scores that actually come out of a common data environment that has been mined for patterns and trends that describe bad situations. So that is something. Now, in order to use or to get to that level of insight, it's important that the system captures everything. So instead of using emails to email approvals or issues to people, you use the system. The system gradually gathers more and more and more information. And once you've got it all there, then our goal, at least at Autodesk, is to be able to mine that data and make decisions based on that data.
Jens, do you have any points you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would say when the pandemic hit, I mean, before it hit, our region, of course, we had to sit down and think about ourselves. How do we deal with this situation here? And of course, what we did was we started to make sure that everybody. It's about infrastructure, IT infrastructure. Simply from our own point of view, how do we make sure that all our offices can speak together, can work together? How do we ensure that everybody can take their laptop and get on the server very, very practical, super, super practical. But the pandemic actually forced us to think in this way, that we were prepared for the situation. I'll say on a more macro level, if we look at, if for example, if we take the SeaWorld project, and this is where we come back to some of the things where we maybe need to discuss openly with clients and contractors, where at what stage in the project do you need what information. So this is the LOD stuff, and what is nice to have and what is need to have. And I think there's a lot of learning. I mean, the pandemic have really showed that what information is necessary at what time in the project. And I think that's something we really need to learn. And when I say we, it's the whole business. What does it actually mean, and how do we work efficiently together?
Trudi, do you have any remarks on this question?
Yeah, I think I'll just reiterate what the others have said, really, in terms of information management being key to this. There's a huge movement in terms of digital and adoption of digital and digitalization going on right now, which is fantastic, and as it should be. But it needs to be brought together in terms of a holistic management approach. It needs to be intuitive. It needs to be interoperable and connected so that we can actually use it to its most effective way.
Yes. In addition to your points, also data governance and data privacy are two important factors that we need to also think about when we come and thinking either in designing these technologies and using them. So speaking of designing, how can we create digital products and services that people can do and trust? Trudi, if you want to answer this question.
So similarly, I think we have to make sure that it is accessible and usable and applied consistently. It's got to be that holistic approach to make it actually trustworthy and intelligent. And it needs to be assured. So the development of these approaches need to have that level of assurance that people can then put their trust in. And that all needs to be developed alongside the new approaches.
That's great. Tony, you have any points you wanna highlight?
No, I think Trudi put it quite well. I would say I'll just illustrate the point here. So today, you and I use, I would imagine you, I, and many other people use Amazon or Apple, and we consume those digital services. We trust them, and the world trusts them. And in fact, they're way ahead of us in terms of usability and cloud and trust. So what we've done at Autodesk, at least, is build all of our cloud services on top of Amazon. Amazon is trusted. Amazon have got the certifications. They've gone through the hoops. They've been in the business for a long time. So, I mean, I think that's a head start or a jump start for anyone. So I like to tell people, if you're thinking about trusting a digital service or a cloud service, you trust Amazon, then you probably can trust most of the people who use that type of a service, or one maybe used by Microsoft. So that's my point.
Trust is really important when it comes to dealing with this with technology. Jens, you wanna point out any points?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I think the short version is that the technology will adapt to our habits, right? More and more we get used to things. The new devices will come, new technologies will come. That's the way I see the future.
So Tony, to what extent is affordability influencing the uptake of smart technologies across the construction value chain?
So that's a very interesting question. I would say one trend is that sensors and actuators are becoming less expensive, which makes them easier to embed and turn our buildings into smart buildings, you know. So the performance of these buildings can be measured and can be controlled centrally. We have an example with Schneider Electric where we embed the data from sensors in one of their buildings into a BIM model, and then as time goes on, we figure out how the building is being used and how we can adapt it and optimize it to use less energy and be more sustainable. So less expensive actuators and sensors, and indeed other technologies like laser scanning and photography. When you think about scanning a building every day to see how much it's progressed against its BIM model, or scanning a plot of land before some artificial intelligence tells you how to redistribute it so that you can build on it. Drones are less expensive, so we're seeing a lot of new opportunities that people can latch onto, and I say we're just starting.
That's correct. Trudi, do you want to highlight any points?
So I think it's
that's the disadvantage of technology, unfortunately.
Yes, we're all used to that though. So reflecting on what Tony said, I think there's technology is advancing quickly, and the appetite for adoption of it is progressing as well. And we all know that as adoption increases and demand increases, then cost points can come down, so become more affordable, more widely dispersed and distributed within the sector, and that uptake will grow. But there is opportunity as well, and slightly off the technology, but onto sort of the processes and approaches that follow the technology. It doesn't have to all be about radical change. It can be incremental, and you can make small adjustments to change the way that things are delivered. And at the other end, sometimes large upfront capital investment seems rather onerous, but if you do enough modeling and simulation ahead of that, and you take into account different processes and approaches, you take the lessons from other industries and apply it, then you can prove the value of that large cost as well. So just as an example, we did some work looking at application of fully manufactured approaches to delivery of schools. Yeah. And with the investment of providing the facilities in the factories to do that, we modeled a scenario that would have resulted in 120 schools being delivered for the cost of 90 after several iterations. So there's an awful lot of the technology now which is actually supporting the move and the potential for investment. And I think that helps the supply chain too, to have that confidence and trust we were talking about in making these changes.
That's great. Eunice, you wanna add any points coming from the sustainability perspective?
Yeah, and this is my favorite question. I mean, this one here, because of the technological development over the last, say, it's 30, 40, 50 years old. Yeah. Right now, I mean, prefabrication has never been in a better situation because of the technology. I mean, today you can have, robots working in the nighttime. I saw a case study the other day from Melbourne, where there was constructed 4 towers at the same time and almost the same height. And then COVID hit. First of all, the prefabricated tower was actually cheaper than the other ones, which is possible now. But again, there were only 22 people on site, so it was possible to construct through the whole process of COVID. When you see the pictures from the factory, there's almost no people there. Perfect for for a pandemic. It was almost like a hospital. Everything was so clean and nice. If you look at the sites here, that's not what we see. It is actually possible, but of course there's a lot of digital improvement in when you work like this. Material waste. When you see how the robots, they weld 2 pieces of steel, I mean, there's less weld than a human being can do. So what we're seeing right now is that robots are actually taking over because of AI. They're constantly learning. So for me, and it was also a faster building. That building, it didn't lose any time because of a lot of technology. So you could produce slabs in the factory which for 5 floors in advance, which you cannot do on a conventional construction process. So everybody wins. And the beauty about robots is that they don't get sick, they don't have kids, they can work in the nighttime, they can work in holidays. But the challenge is, who is going to manage the robots?
Yes, that's
it has
true.
to be a person who can use his hands and his head.
True.
How many people do we have of those, right? You need to know how to build a wall with your hands, and then you need to know how to program the robot afterwards. That, to me, is the challenge of the future, to find these people who can actually do that. That's what I think is going to be interesting to see in the future.
You're bringing up a very good point, because that's where education has to play a role in it. It has to really comprehend, or let's say, migrate with the shift of the trends that's happening in the industry, whether it was in real estate and construction, or finance, or the rest. So speaking of skills and knowledge, Jens, I will direct this question to you. What do you believe the needed skills and knowledge to enable the new methods of functioning and thinking in construction?
I think there needs to be an upskilling. I mean, if we talk about practical level, we don't talk about LOD and all this stuff. If we talk about
like being in the field, like you mentioned, there has to be supervisors to supervise either the robots or the 3D printed machines or the IoT, let's say.
No, and it's exactly that. It is training those people who can build and who can understand the technology. And in all that spin, you have the AI also coming.
True.
So it's going to be super interesting to see, when is a computer going to teach a man how to build? Right? Could that happen?
Perhaps this could be another panel for the future.
So these are sort of the future thoughts, right? I mean, and I think it's extremely interesting to see how it will go. And I mean, in 10 years in Dubai, are we then going to see 6,000 laborers on a site anymore? Maybe not. I mean, maybe the technology will take over. So yeah.
That is true. Trudi, do you want to add any points for this question?
Yeah, this is a really important area, isn't it? And actually can be quite a controversial one. We are no doubt seeing a change in the way that our infrastructure is being delivered. And that's across the world and across the whole spectrum of types of infrastructure. And we see this adoption of digital technologies and new manufacturing approaches and a whole new range of actually delivering the buildings. Now, the risk on the skills front is that the current skill force feels disenfranchised. They feel like they're being put out of jobs. Now, I don't think in many parts of the world that isn't the case, because there are, on the whole, an older workforce. And actually, certainly in the UK, and I know in many other countries, we have a significant skills deficit. So what we can do by adopting some of these approaches, bringing in the automation, is free up our skilled workforce to really do the skilled work, bring in local employment that might be very low skilled to be able to deliver the manual functions where they are needed, because the systems will be intuitive and intelligent and easy to follow with the digital support and the robot teachers. And then we actually will be bringing in a whole new range of people into the industry, and in a slightly accelerated and unfortunate way, but we're seeing that this year where other industries are suffering, but the capabilities and the technologies that they use now are relevant to the new skills needed in the construction industry. So where automotive or aerospace might have suffered more this year, there's opportunity for people to actually transfer their skills to different industries and help them to move forward as well. I
totally agree with you. Tony, what do you want to add on, coming from Autodesk?
Do you know what? Very good points from both of you, but I think in the short term, to get to the vision that Jens and Trudi have shared, we're at that stage where designers and builders need to upskill from basic 2D to 3D connected BIM. So Jens was talking about LOD, which is assuming that everybody is already working in BIM, but that's not the case. So we need to do some major upskilling there. I like Trudi's idea about bringing in people from other industries to step up. But it's the same way the industry needed to move 20 years ago from designing with paper and pen to moving to computer-aided design with our first, ever product, or AutoCAD. So we're at that, and that made a huge impact on the way projects were delivered and speed and so forth. We still have that same opportunity, but that upskilling from 2D to 3D, we can see there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, I think we're still with the early adopters, to be honest. There's a big hill to be climbed. Yeah. So we've got a lot of resources to help with this, by the way. We have a lot of free stuff. We've got resellers that do training. There's academies. There are, all kinds of interesting ways to get people to think about the new norm. It doesn't matter that if you're an aged worker and you're so used to doing things one way, you probably got valuable knowledge. All you need to do is gain a little bit of insight into how to do the BIM, and you would be invaluable.
That's 100% true. I totally agree with all of your answers. I would just add that the importance of data science and data scientists that really emerging worldwide, and it's really important to understand what comes or what can we do with the data that we have in our end, and how can we monetize it, and being also environmentally friendly as well. So for on final notes, what are your final remarks you want our audience to leave with? Another way, let's say, what would be the one significant transformation that will be critical in improving or accelerating the industry and the society, and why? Tony, you can lead on answering this question.
I think disruption in construction will really take off once we move all of our design and make processes to BIM and collaborate in the cloud.
In terms of a single statement, I'd just say be collaborative and be provocative in your innovation. Look beyond just the incremental, but for the opportunity to truly disrupt, because we know that better buildings can equal better lives.
Jens, do you want to have any final remarks?
Yeah, it's going to be short. Based on many years of experience, it is change will always happen. If it doesn't hurt, then it's not a change.
I mean, that's really strong. I mean, thank you for joining our panel discussion of the day on ushering a new era of best practices. Stay safe and have a good day.
And what an information-packed panel. Thank you all so much. Trudi, Tony, Jens, thank you so much. And Hana Al-Suwaidi, thank you so much for moderating that panel. Hana, let me quickly start with you, since we're now bringing you into our Q&A here. And when we look at future economy, particularly with the Department of Development, how can this department actually help businesses, particularly in the construction area?
So thank you, Athna. Basically, Dubai Economy is a government body that's entrusted by the government to set and drive the economic agenda of the Emirate of Dubai. What we do is that we support the structural transformation of Dubai into a diversified, innovative, service-based economy that aims to improve the business environment and accelerate productivity, as well as productivity growth. So what we do with our agencies, that is the Dubai Foreign Direct Investment, Dubai SME, as well as Dubai Export, we identify or develop an economic plan and policies to support the growth of strategic sectors, as well as provide service to domestic and international investors and businesses. We do help companies who are registered here in Dubai land to facilitate their work done, as well as their license here in Dubai.
So you have a great website, lots of valuable information on that. And, for anything else, we'll come knocking on your door. Thank you so much, Hana. Now, of course, to all of our audience, this is the time to get in a few questions. We still have about we've got a good 12 minutes left in this, so I'll be really excited. And it's been a great panel. Tony, I want to talk to you, and I loved the energy among the panel and the great sort of, foresight, and not quite forecast, but looking ahead to all of the great possibilities in this industry. But I'd like to bring you back to like here and now, and what needs to be done right now, because I'm sure everybody is not on the same highway at the same speed, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, the thing that I noticed about all of the panel's talk today was we're talking about projecting ourselves into the future. We talk about things like designing for manufacturing and generative design and all of those good things like robotics and so forth. But today, I'm sorry to say, I feel sometimes that we're actually living in a world where the majority of the population still thinks it's flat. And until we realize that, we're living on a sphere and that, there's different mechanics, we're not going to be able to really address all of the futuristic concepts that we spoke about today. So for me, I ended with please move to BIM, please move to 3D, accept the cloud. And I say this because what I can see from the market, and I operate in the Middle East, Turkey, and South Africa, is adoption is too low for us really to reach that within the next 5 years. It's going to take us 10 years if we keep going at this rate. So thankfully, COVID has come along and kind of forced our hands. What's important is that everybody that's been watching this show continue with this momentum in this direction. Don't revert to their old ways and kind of, make the world flat again. That's my biggest fear and my biggest message.
And indeed it is. It's a journey that, I think is well and truly, we've been pushed along the way a bit. Trudi, your organization's really delivering innovative programs and innovation, and when we look at the companies that you would work for too, what are you hearing from them? What's important, again, right now that everybody implements?
Right. So, there's a need for innovation and change, but we have to take everybody on a journey. And a lot of the work we're doing is about what can we do here and now to enable people to work effectively. And that's been a huge driver this year with the COVID crisis, and how that takes them forward to new approaches. So some of the things we're doing are around helping construction companies pick up skills in relation to fundamental manufacturing processes. Design, DFMA, Design for Manufacturing and Assembly, is very popular now, and we're showing people how that's used in other manufacturing environments that have great practices and how that can translate. Another really important area for us is about our value toolkits. And this, in essence, is helping the client make value-based decisions, which then drive other practices to be adopted and will help that transformation through looking for higher quality, higher productivity, higher efficiency delivery of their buildings. So there's a lot of great stuff coming in the future, but we need to be able to make the steps between there and here more accessible to everybody.
It is indeed. It's a very exciting, it's a very dynamic time, and so much happening together. But when you look at construction in many ways, this is a very traditional industry. Jens, let me bring you in here. Pulling all of these new ideas together and actually delivering something different out there. There's got to be some key challenges along the way that, again, people need to, and many times, stand back and look at and learn from.
Yeah, that's right. Being creative and being, innovative is, of course, very satisfying. If we look back in the 2003 up till 8 in the boom here, why were all these technologies invented here? It was because of time. Everything was provoked. We had to build fast, and because UAE was a melting pot for different regions and different technologies, we could actually combine some of those technologies so we could construct even faster. That's what I mean about combining the technologies and the innovation.
And again, it's so important to actually do this, because this is really where, sort of in a way, the sweet spot is. Tony, let me come back to generative design. And I know, as you said, we've got to start here and move on from there. And again, how is the data really, helping informing better design, more effective decision making, or is it all data driven right now?
Okay, so I think it's early stages, but one thing's for sure: when we use, as we use more and more the BIM, building information modeling concept and the cloud, we can actually capture more data. And so with that, setting out, outcomes as a goal, like, I would like to have 3,000 options for the layout of my garden. Please, and I'd like you to consider, how tall the trees can grow given sun exposure. You're going to get 3,000 options, and so we're at that level that we can do it with. We can do things like sustainability, exposure to sunlight, costing, project, parking spaces, allocation of areas, which is great. But so I think at this stage now we need to step up the human element, which is, how do you choose 3 or 4 of these 3,000 or 4,000 options and present it to your client? So now it's the time for the architects and the engineers and the consultant to put their foot forward and say, listen, I can interpret this for you. I know this one. Look, this is where you really want to go. And they can add their flavor, taste, their experience, all of the years in university and experience and history that they've learned to give us their best options.
And indeed, I think that's what's so fascinating about it. Stay with me a minute on this one, Tony, if you would, because when we look at all that creativity and all that experience that is out there, it's not about the algorithms running away and making decisions in this market. Is really, and it's also about freeing up, I think, that, creativity and great engineering and all of, as you say, all those years of talent. So it's finding the sweet spot, I guess, in terms of being able to deliver, yes, the best option that will be win-win for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may, on occasion, find that the computer gives you a little bluebird that you think, oh, I didn't think of that. That's definitely the winner.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting. Talk to me, Jens, if you would, in terms of particularly, BIM and the building information modeling. And this is a question that's come in from a viewer here. Is it going to be a key factor for upcoming construction projects in Dubai and in the UAE? What do you think?
Yes, I do. I do think it is. And I also think, like Tony said, that there is a nice to have and a need to have. For example, if you look at Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, the Masdar themselves have set out a BIM manual you need to comply to if you want to work there and build there. We did the whole Masdar in 1 hour, which is like an accommodation. And this was one of the first ones 5-6 years ago. And we were working 4 different places around the world. The first time we overlaid all of these models together, we had like 600 clashes. That just explains how difficult it is. So everybody needs to understand what is it used for, what is the benefit. We have all this we talked about earlier about LOD standards. If you ask a client which LOD he wants, he will always say the biggest one, but he doesn't really know what he's going to use it for. So there is a teaching and mentoring within suppliers, contractors, consultants, and owners, and even authorities also. So we all speak the same language.
Now, Trudi, you had talked about how the construction industry, and indeed like many big legacy industries, probably need to look around a little bit more and, open their eyes in terms of what other industries are doing. Obviously, everybody wants to increase productivity. They want to see more efficiency, more effectiveness, agility. All of this is very much part of the big focus. The construction industry might be a little bit late coming in, but there's probably no such thing as being late. There's still so much to learn here. And where do you think the construction industry can perhaps learn best to look at, new models and new creativity and innovation?
The advantage of happening now is that we can learn from other industries, and that's a really positive thing. And sometimes it's seen as negative to do comparisons to automotive or aerospace, but I see it as a huge opportunity to actually be able to accelerate these changes much more quickly than those industries could when they started on these journeys. So we need to exploit that opportunity. And some of the key things are things that people tend to bulk at, but actually can be incredibly advantageous. And one of those that we're looking at is standardization and developing these platform construction systems, which are fundamentally kits of parts that come together using common interfaces but are reconfigurable. So you imagine having this basic system, which is highly designed, high quality, produced in factories, but then being delivered and assembled on site. And we're looking primarily at the moment at social infrastructure. And by that, I mean things like schools and hospitals, and social housing and prisons and so on, that in the UK are delivered by our government departments. If we can deliver a kit of parts that can deliver multiple different building types and be reconfigured for those specific purposes, but made by the same companies, then you capitalize on that scale and you become more efficient, more productive, and you get a lot more delivery of your social infrastructure needs for lower costs, but better whole life value. So it all comes together through that approach.
And I think that makes great sense because there's not a competitive advantage in something like that. So it would make the whole industry more efficient. If I can come back to you, Tony, and I have a question here from a viewer. How will the technology free up the designers from being distracted by contractors trying to recover the margin that they actually parked to win the competitive bid, and actually saying, in other words, how do we stop contractors from using BIM for cash detection, not clash detection? You make sense of that one for me.
Oh, cash detection. I love that. I'm going to have to take a note of that. So, you know, today we design our buildings using BIM predominantly, and we design to a certain level. I think the more advanced among us will use it for 4D, so watching the assembly of the building and make sure it matches the timeline and where it should be. But the next step is 5D, which is including cost into the whole equation. So if you can imagine this, you put a tender out where you describe your BIM mandate, you describe the materials. I think contractors will not take too long to figure out, you know, what they need to price for, because it's practically a case of fill in your number against this specification. So I think it's kind of it has this built-in ability to free people from from people trying to cut corners and reduce their quality of materials. It's built into this whole BIM mandate.
We're running out of time, which just breaks my heart in this. I'm just getting more excited about, you know, this discussion. So there's not really any time to add, you know, anything else to this. So I have to wrap it up here, and I'm really sorry to have to do this, but thank you all so much. And I think one of the key learnings there, you know, while you're all looking to the future and we have some great ideas there, and definitely things are changing, I love the way you bring it back and say we have a few things that we all have to be looking at here and now, and taking care of them as we make sure that we do future-proof this industry. I want to thank you all. Thank you so much, Tony, Trudi, Jens, and Hana. Thank you so much for moderating that session. I'm so grateful to every one of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.